Well, hello and welcome to the Snapdragon Studio YouTube channel. My name is Jane. It's lovely to have you here. And today I am going to talk about synchronicity and creativity and why I think they go together. So first of all, what is synchronicity? Now, synchronicity is basically just a fancy pants word for coincidence. It was made up by the psychiatrist Carl Jung to really talk about all of those patterns that go through life. The kinds of things that if somebody recommends a book to you, you suddenly see it in other places. If you buy a yellow car, you'll see yellow cars all over the place. It's that kind of thing. And, you know, it's coincidences, it's patterns, signals. Now, it's the feeling that it's a really small world, you know. So if you felt any of those things, that is synchronicity. And some people feel that this is part of manifestation and that it is the universe speaking and that we should pay really close attention to these signals because they're showing us the way to go. And other people at the sort of like the far end of this feel that it is nothing apart from the fact that human brains like to make patterns and that we have a thing called cognitive bias where we will sort of latch on to things that make the pattern rather than having kind of a bland view of everything. And I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, but equally, I don't see why those two ends can't both be true. I think that, you know, one thing that human beings do really well is they decide that things are black and white and that they're going to have one view or the other and that there's no way the two views can combine. I think this may well be an example of that. So why am I talking about synchronicity, coincidence, and creativity today? Well, largely it's because last week when I did a video, it was about a series of coincidences that happened around going to an exhibition of the work of Tirzah Garwood. Now, you can go back and watch the whole video, which is about Tirzah Garwood, but I'll just sort of do a little recap here. So last year, I went down to London and I saw an exhibition of the work of Tirzah Garwood, who was the first half of the 20th century. She was an artist and she worked in a wide variety of materials. The trip to the art gallery was kind of a studio event, so some other studio members came with me and we all loved it. I made a YouTube film about the exhibition and a bit about Tirzah's life and why I particularly enjoyed it. Somebody sent a link to that video to one of my neighbours here who turned out to be the great niece of Tirzah Garwood and who had two big folio books. She turned up on my doorstep with the two books and lent them to me to go through. And they were just amazing. In some ways, they were very similar to the exhibition catalogue and the autobiography that I had already read. But there was a whole load of pockets of extra information. And one of the pockets of information was about a dresser full of china, which was made, like put together and photographed for a thing called the Saturday Book. The Saturday Book ran from 1920s to 1975, and I have one copy of it. And when I went to get my copy, yes, there was the picture of the dresser, 1947, the one copy that I have of the Saturday book. So there was all of these little links, you know, it sort of, it felt, just felt buoyant and joyous and as though it was meant to be. You coming up here, Luke? But there was more, right, which I didn't mention last week. So I want you just to hold it there, that all of my art history kind of musings have ended up with a picture of a dresser in the Saturday book, 1947. Now, I love funny things. I love things that make me smile. The house is full of things that just make me smile. And a few years ago, I bought in a local antique shop a Staffordshire figure of a cow and a milkmaid just because it made me laugh. Because the cow is like enormous and the milkmaid, they've obviously not had enough space to put her on the thing. And she is like knee high to the cow. And it's, you know, just a piece of pure stupid joy. And so I bought that in the antique shop and it has been on my bathroom windowsill. But one of the reasons that I bought it, apart from just its stupidity, is that my gran used to have a Staffordshire figure of a couple that was on her windowsill at the top of the stairs. And I remembered that from childhood, you know, long gone. And that was kind of part of the thing, you know. I didn't have that one, but I did have this. And then just this past Easter, I went to visit my parents. Now, my mum has been starting to clear out her house. She was an antique dealer and she used to just keep things. If they were too damaged to sell, but were beautiful, amazing, great pieces, she would just keep them. And she would put them on this shelf that went right the way round her kitchen. Sort of like, I don't know, maybe about this far from the ceiling. It was just stuffed full of amazing things that had been bashed about in their lives a bit. And she had been clearing that out, trying to thin it out. And she'd moved some things down onto the kitchen dresser. And when I walked in, there, straight ahead of me, was my gran's Staffordshire figure, which I had thought had gone the way of these things. I said to Mum, was that Gran's? She said, yeah. It's just been up on that top shelf. That's why you wouldn't have seen it. So I said, well, don't get rid of that because I would really like that. I said, no, that's fine. I mean, it's family stuff, so I wouldn't have got rid of it anyway. So next month, it's my birthday, and I unwrap my present for my mum, and here is this Staffordshire figure. And so now it's mine. And it's sort of like a couple, and it was a spill holder and things. So that went in the middle of my bathroom window, next to the cow and the milkmaid. It looked lovely. But then there was a gap to one side. And I thought, well, I should really just get another one because then it will be three. Three always looks better. And as I had one cow facing this way and then the figures in the middle, I needed something that was kind of like facing the other way. So I just went on to eBay and immediately I saw this absolutely ridiculous man on horseback in a blue jacket, and the horse's head had been off and glued back on, which all of these are damaged. And I love the fact that somebody has cared enough about them to repair them, not just put them in the bin. So damaged things I love. And I thought, no, I should really get something more sensible. I should go and get a collectible Staffordshire figure, or one that is Highlanders, because there was a lot of sort of Highlander kind of ones, or another cow to go with my milkmaid. But I kept coming back to this man on horseback, and everybody I showed it to just giggled because it's so ridiculous looking. I thought, I was going to buy it. £17, bought it from eBay. It arrived, put it on the windowsill. It looks amazing. Right, Let's go back to the Saturday book. Last week, when I was doing the film, I thought, I'm sure I've got a little, another Saturday book, not one of the ones that is part of the actual sort of like annuals, but a kind of a compilation. So went searching, found it. It also had the Tirzah dresser picture in it. It was sort of like a roundup of all of the articles that had been about early 19th century pottery. And there, 2 pages away, is a Staffordshire man on horseback. Almost identical to my man on horseback. But I hadn't seen it until after I had acquired him for my windowsill. And then looking at him and looking at the differences between the two things, I noticed the blob on the top of the head of the horse. And I realised that it wasn't a feather, as somehow I had thought. It was a hawk. It's a very bad hawk, I would say. It looks more like a parrot. But it is obviously meant to be a hawk. This is a man out riding in his blue jacket with his hawk. And as my birthday present from Ewan, I got a day flying hawks, which was wonderful. So it all kind of tied up. Now, what does this mean? Absolutely nothing. I'm not looking at these things and thinking, oh, the universe is, pressing me to open a china shop or something. Nothing. But for me, what it means is that my mind and my creativity is fit and well, because the connections that I can make with these kinds of things, they're all actually dependent on trying new things, reading new things, meeting new people, going to things, buying things, having conversations. If I hadn't had the conversation with my mum, I wouldn't have got the Staffordshire figures. If I hadn't got the Staffordshire figures, I wouldn't have thought I need another one for that windowsill. If I hadn't talked to lots of other people who all, like me, laughed at the man on the horse, I wouldn't have bought that one. It wouldn't have been part of my bringing joy into my home. It is, as well as being a linking of coincidences, it is an example of the fact that I am engaged in life. And if I am engaged in life, I get more coincidences, I get more synchronicities, I'm more creative, I see connections, I see patterns, I get excited about things. And that is kind of the point. So that's really what I wanted to talk about here, that if you're looking for creativity in your life, try and do new things, see new people, have conversations, to the point that you are getting all of these little sparks of coincidence. I think of them, I don't know whether anybody knows ceilidh dancing, but there is a famous ceilidh dance called Strip the Willow, and it's 2 long lines of people, and a couple will move up and down this long line just by linking arms and whirling round. So it's sort of like figures of 8 that move along the dance floor. It's a brilliant dance to do. It's so fun. That's how I see all of these synchronicities. They are just links that are getting you through life with joy, verve, everything. So I was speaking about this with people who are in bloom, which is kind of like my mentoring kind of thing. We do a journaling session once a month, and we were journaling about writing. I don't really like the word journaling. We were writing about things that had happened that were like this. And lots of people actually went away, and in that next week, they had things happen that they reported to me. And it would be things like admiring somebody in a supermarket queue, making the point of admiring somebody's outfit and making a connection that led them to something that they had been puzzling over how to do something. That person held the key, but they would not have talked to them necessarily. But the sort of like the openness, the I really love your jumper kind of thing just brought that in. Or somebody else was a very similar story, out for coffee with her friend, somebody at the next table. For some reason, they decided to speak to the woman at the next table. Normally, they would have just spoken amongst themselves. They were out to see each other. But the woman at the next table was going through something really, really similar to them. And that conversation changed the way that their day was going. It's all of these kinds of things. Somebody else, very like the supermarket thing, saw some patchwork cushions in somebody's car next to her to car park. She said, "Oh, I love those cushions." Found the woman does classes, and this person had been looking for a patchwork class for a couple of years. This one was very near. She went to it. She loved it. It's that kind. They're small, like my Staffordshire figures, like the Saturday book, like the folio books that I got to borrow. They're all really small, but they connect us and they make us open, or rather they are a symptom of us being connected and open and trying new things, reading new things, talking to new people, being part of a community. I would love to know if you have had any synchronicities or coincidences. Keep the language simple, maybe. Any coincidences in your life, let me know in the comments and I'll read everyone. And until next week, bye bye.